Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be studying a piece by the multidisciplinary artist known as Goliath, and in today's episode, we're going to be looking at some of the darker sides of human nature, including sadness, loss, and betrayal. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So whenever you first see this work, we see what appears to be this lone subject kind of, receding away, sitting on what appears to be the top of a mushroom or a mushroom cap within this large and wider forest. This figure no doubt feels quite lonely. He's sitting all alone. He looks downward. We even see some tears streaming down the face as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that emotion here in a second, but just to kind of analyze the composition with the placement in space, we have our lone subject set in center. This, of course, draws our eye within the work, and of course, much of the work is quite dark. We do have those brighter elements far beyond. That also unlocks some symbolism we'll discuss a bit later, but when we're looking at this work, you see most of the work is quite dark, right? Those mushrooms create that shroud, that, darkness area where our subject sits within. That is quite symbolic, like I said, but within this work, you also have various colors working with each other, right? For example, most of this feels red and orange, but within that, you have that green accent. Red and green, of course, are going to be complementary colors, so they're going to be contrasting, kind of fighting for the viewer's attention, but most of this work is that base of that reddish orange, but of course we have the accents of green, blue, even a little bit of yellow as well. So all of those are quite important to create the visual experience that results from that. You also see, of course, the impact of form, right? For example, our lone subject is kind of all in one mass here. Of course, that does come to a point, does a good job of kind of contextualizing that silhouette, but within this work we also have a sense of rhythm or a sense of weight as you go from mushroom cap to mushroom cap. There is this weight as if they're weighing down onto the composition, whether it's the impact of light or the impact of form. Regardless, they certainly result in the visual experience which we feel at this moment. I wanted to ask you guys, how do y'all feel when you view this composition, or what is coming to mind when you're viewing this work? Of course, our lone figure is sitting all alone. Like I said, it is a lone singular subject. There is no one else within this composition, so that is going to feel already quite introspective. Of course, if our subject wasn't as sad, it's still going to be pretty introspective if that lone figure is all alone. So we have this subject sitting here, and my eye is drawn to the rainbow. Of course, that lone kind of pocket of light within the composition, almost a hopeful, distant destination. It's hard to say exactly why that calls my eye, other than, of course, the rarity that's created by that. But, that rainbow is something which is far away. It is, far, far from the shadows which our subject sits within. That is going to be pretty important. He is far from that state of mind. He is nowhere near it in this moment. And so at the bottom, we see a little bit of a text quote, "I miss trusting people, ... I used to trust." So he's either saying, I used to trust people and I miss trusting people, or he missed people that he used to trust as well. But of course, the title of this work as "I miss trusting people" points more to that first part of the statement there. There is no doubt the sense of betrayal within the composition. There is this trust that has been broken, and all of this sadness, all of this loss, all of this negative emotion is going to be resulting from that. We certainly see that within the composition. And when it comes to the idea of trust is a very easy thing to lose and a very difficult thing to gain back. So with that, of course, there is this vulnerability that comes inherent with the sense of trust. When you trust someone, you're lending out your hand, which could be hurt, it could be burned, it could be, cut. And so it is no doubt a risk to extend your hand, but ultimately that is the nature of trust itself. And so much of society is built on trust. So when that is broken, it is going to produce this intense negative emotion, this intense feeling of sadness, loss, even turning that inward to a sense of self-consciousness. Those are all very important when we're looking at this work. Of course, once again, our subject is sitting in the darkness. He is sitting in the shadows, kind of, crying to himself. He is receding away from everyone. Like I said, he is a lone subject here. So that's going to be very symbolic. He is sitting within the darkness. He is feeling the darkness. He is in that dark state of mind, and that is so far away from the distant and ever far away rainbow. And so that's extremely important when we're understanding not only the symbolism, but even the visual experience of this work as well, because that impact of light connects directly to the symbolism of the work that we're feeling. And our subject is kind of reminiscent of what we would refer to as a dunce. and a dunce is someone who has continually made mistakes over and over again, maybe even not learning from those past mistakes and falling into a rut, making so many moves that just end up completely destroying everything around you. That can be very evident of the dunce as well. And I don't mean to sound so harsh there. That was originally used in the context of students. A student would put on a dunce hat if they're acting up in class, being a class clown or disrupting the learning environment. He'd be, put a dunce hat on, face the wall, and essentially be in timeout. So the dunce is someone who isn't learning from their past mistakes and continues to go through that over and over again. I could not confirm this is not the exact symbolism perhaps, but that cone hat certainly reminds me of that symbolism there. So I just wanted to briefly mention that. Of course, at the end of the day, this does feel kind of like a fantasy work, almost like a carnival, if you will. Of course, these colors and what is almost reminiscent of a clown with that kind of pointed hat. Of course, I'm just speculating here, but regardless, there are many things that undergird the visual experience, most symbolically and literally of the work before us here. It seems as if our subject has, too many tricks has been played on him over and over, or maybe even he plays tricks on others, breaking the trust inherently. It's hard to say exactly what's happened, but there is this sense of darkness, a sense of sadness, a sense of loss, a sense of betrayal, and the sense of trust being broken. Ultimately, really hope you'll enjoy today. The work before us, I wanted to ask you guys, what do y'all see when you view this composition, or why do you think this figure is here? Are there any narratives that you get? Is there any further symbolism that I didn't hit on today? Really want to know what y'all think of the original work today. The medium used here is going to be the digital illustration that, of course, is also referred to as digital paint, painstakingly painting upon a screen, layer after layer after layer. This is a very stylistic piece, but it's also quite realistic, so that shows a great amount of masterful detail on part of Goliath. He really pays attention to the works he creates, and the original subject here actually appears in many different pieces which he creates, but I didn't bring any of those in here because this is just a very emotional, very unique piece. I wanted to talk about that today. So like I said, really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoyed, go check out the original artist Goliath. Like I said, doing some amazing stuff in multiple different mediums, but primarily that's going to be the digital illustration or digital paint. We talked about so many different things today, from this sense of visual rhythm. We talked about the visual weight. We talked about the impact of color. We talked about the dunce symbolism. We talked about the sense of loss, betrayal, this sense of loss of trust. There's so many different things we hit on today. I really hope you'll enjoy it. If y'all enjoyed, like I said, go check out the original artist Goliath, doing some amazing stuff in multiple different mediums, primarily digital paint. My name's Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.